Hi there, good morning, Mady Gomez here. So we are at the, what is this?
The Yolo County Office of Emergency Services.
Yolo County Office of Emergency Services. You just heard it. This is Dana Carey, and she is head of the Yolo County
Office of Emergency Services.
Perfect. And so this is more of like the behind the scenes. Now here's the office where pretty much everything that happens with the alert system goes down. So we are about to kind of see exactly what it takes, what all you guys have to do to get some of the mass notifications out to the public. So what are you about to do here in a few seconds?
So in a few seconds we're actually going to launch a mass notification that's a high water notification for a gauge that's going to have a high water level in Cache Creek tonight, a little bit later this evening. And just to kind of let the public know that the water level is going to be high, we're going to be out there watching it, and it will provide them with additional information if we have anything or if we need them to do anything that's a protective measure.
Right. So as you guys know, we've had the set of storms hit Northern California for the past couple of days. Today, I do understand, is supposed to be the worst of it. Is that right?
So the storm itself isn't necessarily worse than, like, say, last night, but the water level in Cache Creek itself is going to be higher, mainly because that water filters down from higher in the creekway system. So it actually was up in the Capay Valley earlier this morning around 3 a.m. That same water flow hits us here closer to Woodland later this afternoon.
And that's when we talk about like danger levels, because once those waters rise above like the levee, that's where it can get potentially dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we already have crews out on the levee system right now watching any kind of areas that may pop up, or seeing if they have to do any protective sandbagging. There's already sandbags, lots of supplies out there in case we have to deal with anything. We're, of course, hoping that the water stays within the Cache Creek channel, but we've pre-placed lots of resources to make sure that we can deal with response of any kind tonight.
And can we talk about exactly the area, because we're talking about Cache Creek, but in the Yolo County area. Can you kind of give us more of like that?
Cache Creek is actually fed by a number of water systems that come down from Clear Lake area, and so all that water filters into Cache Creek. It flows from the northwest side of the county, kind of over the west side of the county through just north of Woodland, and then it dumps into the river system like Sacramento River System and the Yolo bypass, things like that.
Perfect. Some of the lower levels, what could potentially be flooded in case the water rises?
Well, anytime water rises in the unincorporated area, that's what we kind of call the non-city areas, we always have localized flooding. That's where you see water on streets and you hear people like myself saying don't drive through it because it can be deeper than you think it is.
It's always better to stay safe. We always say that as well.
Absolutely. And so we always see that in a rural area. When the water gets to a certain height on the levee, it becomes really close to the top of what we call the levee crown, and that's where it's anticipated to be tonight. So basically we're going to be watching it, making sure it stays in the channel. If it's going higher, then we can do things called emergency flood fight. That's like sandbagging and stuff. Or we may alert the public that we need them to move if we think
like
it's
evacuations is what we're talking about. Okay.
Exactly.
All right, so let's go ahead and watch it, because I know we're about to put an alert.
Yes,
we are.
So what I have up on my screen, if it's easier to see it there, or right here on the computer screen, is actually an alert that we already set up. It basically tells people about high water and kind of precautions them to listen to us if we have to give them more information tonight, so that we're kind of loading up and letting the public know as much ahead of time as we can.
Right.
We've already pre-recorded the voice message for this, so you can go ahead and hit that. And so the voice message is actually my voice.
High water levels in Cache Creek at the Yolo gauge are forecasted tonight. The levels of the creek will be higher than they were on Valentine's Day. Please make sure that you take any protective measures for your home, family, and property. Please listen to the guidance of local fire and law officials if additional information is released during this high water event.
So we usually pre-record the messages. That way it doesn't sound like a computer or a robocall as much. People tend to hang up on computers and robocalls. We really want them to get our message and listen to it. We'll be sending it out via text, email, voice call. Our system even does TTY, TTD for the hearing impaired, and so we have all of those methodologies check marked on this particular send. So we basically are blasting it out to everything that we've got. About 460 people in the shape that we drew up around that levee.
Gotcha. So where do we find ourselves right now? Which stage? I mean, as you mentioned, you know, we're probably not going to get as much rain as far as the storm. Now we're just dealing more with the water levels.
Yes.
What stage are we at right now?
So it's kind of hard because there's different monitoring platforms that name the stages different things.
Gotcha.
But if you think about Cache Creek in the summertime, people sometimes ATV down in the bottom of it, so it's usually very dry. During the winter time, it filters water through that water system to get it kind of out of Cache Creek into the bigger area that flows out into the delta. So right now, I'd say, without being out there at the moment, but we're headed out that way next.
We are.
That we have several feet left of the levee system, but the waters will rise higher pretty quickly. So, and they'll go down pretty quickly.
Okay, so I do understand by 4 o'clock today, those levels are probably going to be at their highest. Is that correct?
Correct.
Because I did want to ask you about if we can just walk over to that desk, because I have some information that we actually printed out earlier today. So it just, you know, sometimes it's hard to understand some of these. So I wanted to see if maybe you could kind of tell me more about what we're looking at here. So let's take a look. So this is what we were looking at earlier online. I do understand that the highest feet of water in the past has been at 85, these are my notes, sorry, at 85.35, and of course right now we're at 83.7.
Well, 83.7 will be the highest point it's forecasted to be. We're not at 83.7 right
now.
second.
Okay, gotcha.
So there's still a little bit more ways to go on that, but your notes, to my knowledge, are correct. What the printout you have here is called the California Nevada River Forecast Center. It's a website that's maintained. It shows river gauges from the United States Geological Survey and the Department of Water Resources and the heights of those gauges in as near real time as possible. And then it also takes into account the weather forecast that's coming up, whether any rain's falling or any water releases are coming out of the dams that feed the system. And that's why when you see this in color, it actually, the line kind of to the left of this median is a dark blue. That's what's already happened. Then there'll be a lime green portion, and that's kind of, we're pretty sure this is going to happen. And then when it gets hot pink, kind of down at the bottom, it ends up being, we're anticipating that, but it's just like any good weather system, you know, the forecasts change over time depending on what happens.
Okay, and then I do understand, again, just kind of going off of what I understand. Also, Rob, Carl Mark was giving me more information about this, so thank you, Rob. But let's talk about Cache Creek, because I do understand that it is one of the most higher risk of failure rivers here in California.
You know that, I don't know if I would classify it as like the highest risk or higher than any other system, because any system can fail if we don't treat it properly or we don't monitor it properly. A lot of levees, there's actually a historical kind of video on YouTube from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that explains that the levees were made in the 1940s by farmers. So they at the time they were made, they weren't engineered systems like they would be if we made them today.
Now, right?
So, you know, over the years, many of us find funding sources to upgrade those systems, or what we call harden them, where we put geotechnical fabric and things against it to make it a more solid surface. But that one does have an interior bend where the water kind of, we call it an eddy, and so that's why we watch it so closely.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Thank you for that clarification. So just for folks who may not know, can you tell us more about this office and what you guys do?
Sure. This is the Emergency Operations Center, and actually David brought up your graph there in color for you with the blue and the green and the pink, so you can kind of see that. But the Emergency Operations Center is a location that we can activate, and we call in staff from all the departments that the county actually has under its purview. We call in partners from outside agencies like Pacific Gas and Electric or Yolo County Flood Control Water Conservation District, pretty much anybody we need for whatever's going on, fire, flood, earthquake, doesn't matter. And this whole room gets filled basically even all the way into the back where there's even more seats, and they work on things like shelter operations, emergency flood fight operations, road closures, If it were more hazardous materials related, they can deal with things like that. But it's one big team that works together kind of to attack whatever's in front of us.
Gotcha. Perfect. Okay. So, of course, thank you for that. Thank you. And as you heard Dana said, you know, later on we're going to go out, we're going to go take a look at those levees, those the water levels, and have more information for you later on today during the 5 and 6. So make sure to tune in. And thanks for watching.